Well, Jason at 4 here, YouTube. And before I get started, just for any new subscribers, I've been putting links in the description box below all these YouTube videos that I do daily. That there's a playlist link so that you can just press play once and all 2 or 3 of my videos will play automatically. So you don't have to go back and forth if you want to know what's happening in the world, in the country, banking, finance, shenanigans, corruption, whatever it may be. I'm your guy. Today, a couple stories I want to talk about. One's from wearechange.org. I got to say, there's not enough credit in the world to go out to Luke Radowski, who's really the founder of that whole organization and movement. I remember seeing videos of him in New York cornering some of these rats, these politicians, and hit them with a little quick, easy question, and they answer it, and they're okay with it. Then he hits them with the hard one. Like he nailed, Luke Radowski nailed John Podesta the other day. Had that guy stuttering and hiccuping and didn't know what to say and had to walk away. But he answered the first question just fine. Because that was Luke was like, I hit him with a little softball, hooked him in, and then nailed him. Luke Radowski for president, all right? So anyways, I got an article from wearechange.org I want to discuss. And, of course, one from Zero Hedge. The one from We Are Change, President-elect Donald Trump endorses Rand Paul's Audit the Fed bill. And then on the other side, Chuck Schumer slams Republicans for proposing a $9 trillion in new debt over, I think, the span of 10 years. But they want to just get it out of the way. Let's add, in other words, let's allow ourselves to introduce ourselves to print or raise the debt ceiling, I should say, another practically $10 trillion in the span of 10 years. Now, we saw that is exactly what happened with Obama, except in 8 years. We had $10 trillion in debt. We left with $20 trillion. He added 10. So, again, on one side, I thought we're draining the swamp, fiscal responsibility, saving jobs, lowering taxes, all that stuff, whatever. But we're going to have to print a crap load of money. And I think I got a little sneaky suspicion that they as in the club, or should I say those taking over now, like Trump, the Trump team, if you will, already know that the U.S. dollar is going to be a thing of the past, and that they're already got the plans to back the new currency, whatever it may be, buy gold. So they understand. They're not going to tell you or I, but they already understand that this thing is going away, so we might as well party like it's 1999. Or like the debt's 1999, on sale. Because we can just print more money, massively increase the debt, raise the debt ceiling, and then when it really comes time to deal with it, we just have a great, there may be a bank holiday, who knows, but they deal with it at the end, it implodes in spectacular fashion, and then they instantly usher in this new system, which must be backed by precious metals, or else who in the world is going to want to deal with it again? There's no way we're going to do what we just did, putting ourselves in perpetual debt, raising the debt ceiling over and over again, paying this massive amount of interest to these bankster families that own the Federal Reserve and all the central banks, which you're about to hear a little bit about in a second from this Luke Radowski article. But, so anyways, I have a feeling that's why Trump's in there. And he's probably saying, we can just do what we did the last 8 years. Now we can do it with me leading. And we're going to make this real useful this time around instead of giving it to the banksters. We're really going to use that money. We're really going to put people back to work. And yes, we're going to go into debt hell doing so, which I think at the end of this, they'll repudiate the debt. They'll wipe it off. They'll devalue, whatever they have to do. Because the Federal Reserve is the one that's coming up and buying all the debt now anyways. So who's to stop the Federal Reserve from buying all the debt? We raised $9 trillion, make it $20 trillion. Let's have $30-something trillion by the time Trump leaves office. What's the difference if the Federal Reserve can just buy it, and we make sure, since the Federal Reserve is buying it, you get no interest. You're not borrowing or lending us money anymore. You're just going to print the money, and in the meantime, you're going to buy back all the debt that's out there. They could do that. I don't know if they're going to do that. But anyways, we are changed. President-elect Trump endorses Rand Paul's Audit the Fed bill. And Rand Paul has a little tweet. President-elect Donald Trump has stated his support for the Audit the Fed. Hashtag Audit the Fed. Let's send him the bill this Congress. Auditing the Fed is something that started with Rand Paul's father, Ron Paul, who has been pushing for years to have the Federal Reserve Central Bank audited. That measure may soon become a reality if the new Congress votes in favor of the legislation. Because here, let me stop again real quick. If they pin this all on the Federal Reserve, which it is their fault. The Fed took over the country in 1913. It was a war you never heard about. Like Rothschild said, give me control of a nation's money and I care not who makes its laws. Because they will always be in debt to me and they will always need to borrow money from me. Me as in his central bank. So they could pin all this on the central bank. The central bank looks bad. We end up dissolving the thing later after it takes all the blame. Wouldn't that be a perfect way to get out of this mess? And they may try that. So, the measure may soon become a reality if the new Congress votes in favor of legislation. Rand Paul and Thomas Massie have reintroduced the controversial Audit the Fed bill after a similar effort failed with the last Congress in January 2016. Quote, the U.S. House has responded to the American people by passing Audit the Fed multiple times, and President-elect Trump has stated his support for an audit. Let's send him the bill this Congress, Rand Paul said. Key points this time around include the fact that both the House and Senate are controlled by Republicans who have long been critical of the Fed's policies. Trump himself has also said before on Twitter that he would audit the Fed. Under the bill, the Fed's monetary policy would be subject to outside board review by the Government Accountability Office. However, if the U.S. Central Bank is ever fully audited, it is assumed that massive fraud would be exposed. Former Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke previously said that if an audit of the Federal Reserve was to take place, the dollar and the U.S. economy would be in danger. Quote, here's what he said. My concern about the legislation is that if the GAO is auditing not only the operational aspects of the programs and the details of the programs, but making judgments about our policy decisions, would effectively be a takeover of monetary policy by the Congress and a repudiation of the independence of the Federal Reserve, would be highly destructive to the stability of the financial system, the dollar, and our national economic situation, end quote. You would ask why? How could that possibly, hey everybody, that's like saying auditing the gold in Fort Knox could cause massive instability, the dollar to crash, and our economy to completely falter. Now you would say that, and it would be true if the gold wasn't there. But if the gold's really there, you have nothing to worry about doing audit. There it is. That should make our dollar skyrocket. Hey, next day, markets rally. The U.S. actually has its gold. It's been audited and accounted for. Markets rally. But if the truth was that the gold wasn't there, markets not rally, dollar not rally, economy not looking good. The same can be said for the Fed. If you have nothing to hide and everything's fine and you're doing what's right for the country, what's the problem? Why can't we see what's going on? They want to put that fear in us that if you take a peek at our books and what we're doing, it's doom and gloom. No, it's called uncovering massive fraud, and we'll get to see who the real owners of the Federal Reserve are, which are, I'm telling you now, the same too big to fail banks. Will be shareholders. It will be found out, I guarantee. And, by the way, Bernanke's former advisor infamously said that people would be stunned to know the extent to which the Fed is privately owned as early as April of 2016. The people would be stunned to know to the extent to which the Fed is privately owned. What kind of statement do you think that means? It means exactly what I just said. You mean we had this massive multi-trillion-dollar bailout to these banks, these so-called too big to fails, and they're also the owners of the Fed? They're shareholders? Exactly. How much do you want to bet that that is the case? Don't bet me, because number one, I don't really bet, but you would lose that bet. You already know the answer anyway, so you wouldn't be foolish enough to make that bet. I already know that. So that's good news on the one hand, right? But then on the other hand, Zero Hedge, they want, it says, signaling in remarks given on the Senate floor, signaling the multi-levels of defense that Democrats are likely to wage to protect Obamacare. Schumer cited a letter by White House Budget Director Sean Donovan. Donovan's letter notes the Senate GOP's fiscal year 2017 budget resolution allows the public debt to rise from $14.2 trillion in 2016 to $23.7 trillion in 2026. A visibly angry Schumer then said Republicans have lectured President Obama and congressional Democrats for 8 years about the problems posed by rising deficits and debt. Quote, "Be fair, be consistent," he scolded Republicans and then chided them for their 180-degree reversal by pushing a budget resolution that envisions massive deficits. "This is not being fiscally conservative," he said. It was not clear if he himself had become a fiscal conservative or was simply trying to put Republicans in a bad light for their votes. Well, did we just add $20 or $10 trillion while they were in charge? The Democrats, the left, the right, doesn't matter. The answer is yes. So now that they've passed the torch, now they can rah, 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 yeah, you guys are going to raise the debt. Where's the fiscal conservative? We can't be fiscally conservative now. I already said this years ago. We passed the point of no return years ago. The amount of debt we have, we are beyond the point of no return. Government keeps expanding. Defense money keeps going higher and higher. Spending goes higher and higher. As I've said correctly numerous times, there will be absolutely no budget cuts for the military, defense, industrial complex, industry, etc. And by the way, I'm sure you've heard, Trump wants the largest, most powerful Navy. That's what he wants. And as you can imagine, that's not exactly cheap. Here we are talking about budget deficits and massive defense spending that they're trying to cut down, which they never can because it keeps going higher. There's always a reason. So get ready to spend. But again, if the fly on the wall hears them talking about, guys, it's just money, it's just numbers. It means nothing anymore. We are gonna get out of this debt when it all implodes anyways. We already got the system ready to go. We're going to ride this gravy train to the end. Yes, we're going to print a lot more money, borrow it, whatever. It's not going to matter. Because we're going to, whether it's default or whatever it is, we're going to deal with this later. Now, I will say, if that was the case, there should be no issues with funding Social Security, Medicaid, all this stuff. Because you could print your way out of it. Just print more. Oh, you want $9 trillion in 2026? No. Make it $15 trillion. Got all these unfunded liabilities, and since you guys are going to have a backup plan B that we don't get to know about with the currency crashing and reset or whatever hell happens, you can just funnel that stuff in there too. Include it. Package it up like the banks did the mortgage-backed securities. Just bundle this garbage up. So, again, one hand, let's do audit the Fed. Let's do this. That sounds good. On the other hand, let's spend massive amounts of money. But if they can pin this on the Fed later when they need to, the Fed will go down as the bad guy. I want to remind you that the Webbot reports have always talked about the Fed going down as the bad guy, so to speak, in so many words. It will be exposed. It will be the problem. It'll be the cancer, whatever. It's going to be the issue. And I don't remember the word. I didn't think about looking up the Webbots right now to look up the specific keyword or whatever, but it essentially said that. Okay? So, again, we got to wait and see what Trump does. I'm reading today, he was going to give a little bit of time on Obamacare. Let's wait. I was going to repeal it immediately, but we do need to put something together. So I'm on page with my colleagues. He said, we can wait a little bit. And then all of a sudden today, like a reversal. Boom. Which today was yesterday for you guys. Nope. I want to get this thing out as fast as possible. Get it out. But they want to keep the parts like, everybody gets health care. You can't just pick and choose. And I'm going to tell you, that's going to be a hard thing to deal with, because if you can't pick and choose as a healthcare provider, and you get stuck with these people, $10,000 cancer treatment, another $10,000 hospital bill, cancer treatment, this one's got that, $10,000, just for you're in and out of the hospital. Unbelievable amounts of money being spent. and paid for, of course, by the insurance companies, which then makes you and I, those who don't need that kind of health care, have to foot the bill, so to speak, for everybody else. So how do you deal with that? Again, if they're going to spend all this money, you could just spend it and subsidize the entire healthcare industry. Subsidize the freaking healthcare industry like you did the banks. You bailed out the banks, bail out the healthcare. And then not just bail them out, subsidize them. You're subsidizing all kinds of other stuff. This is the way empires end anyways. So let's get on with it. Subsidize, socialize, do whatever the hell you have to do to crash this current system so we can start over. Okay? That's my take on it. Probably not going to go that way, but it should. Take care.